26th October, early morning, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, what is called the death watch hour. When the defenders are at their sleepiest, Israel finally struck back at Iran in retaliation for its 1st October missile strike with about 181 ballistic missiles. Initial details about the Israeli retaliation were fairly sketchy. Some reports, American reports, said that this attack was underwhelming. Even Iran tried to give the impression that nothing much had happened, that they had just lost about 4 air defense gunners, 2 officers, 2 soldiers, then they added a 5th, and they said very minimal, very little damage to their installations and facilities. In the next few days, the Israeli press, especially the Jerusalem Post, came out with a number of very interesting details of how this attack had progressed. The simple fact is that the Israelis have been doing contingency planning and rehearsals for just such an attack for the last more than 10-15 years. In 2022, they had held an exercise called Chariots of Fire, right? And they had simulated an attack on Iran by flying up to Cyprus, almost the same distance, a little more, and they had practiced air-to-air refueling in between. They had rehearsed it to perfection. They have been saying all along that we have developed some very specific air-to-surface ballistic and cruise missiles which were designed to help carry out precisely such a strike against Iran. Why then did it take 25 days for Israel to hit back? It took 25 days because there was a serious tug of war between Joe Biden and Netanyahu over what targets would be attacked and with what force and when, right? So the Americans were very concerned about their forthcoming election, 5th of November, the American presidential elections, which are bitterly contested, very strongly contested election, and they were not at all keen that there should be a major escalation or flare up in the Middle East on the eve of the elections. They had initially, Biden had been pressing Israel for a ceasefire, but Netanyahu had ignored those entreaties for a ceasefire, and he had gone and hit Hamas very hard. He had taken out Haniyeh, and then he had taken out Sinwar, and he had attacked Lebanon in a very, very devastating blows he had struck. Hassan Nasrallah was killed. His next 2 successors were also knocked out, eliminated. About 7 top leaders of the Hezbollah were neutralized, and the simple fact is that he was just putting the pressure on, and he had struck devastating blows both to Hamas and both to Hezbollah. The pager bomb attack, the walkie-talkie attacks had taken out a lot of their top-level leadership, middle-tier leadership, lower-level operatives. Critical operatives had their faces and eyes and half their faces blown off, and that had induced a lot of demoralization and tension in the ranks of the Hezbollah. Then they had started major air attacks, over 80,000 attack sorties to destroy the missile launching facilities of Hezbollah, the rocket launching sites of Hezbollah, hit this thing in deep tunnels, take out their command and control echelons, and then they had, towards the end conclusion, they had mounted a major attack against the border defenses of the Hezbollah on Lebanon. They had started the ground invasion, ground incursion, initially to blow up the tunnel mouths with their special forces operations, and these raids are continuing even as we speak. So he had totally ignored the entreaties, the pressure put by Joe Biden for a ceasefire, which was in the American interest. So there was a school of thought that Netanyahu, having gotten his chance to hit back at Iran, would not listen to American advice or not listen to any American pressure, not succumb to any American pressure, but go the whole hog, hit the nuclear facilities, hit the petrochemical facilities and give a knockout blow to Iran. We had been saying all along that was not possible. That was not possible. You see, Lebanon, where the Hezbollah is, and Gaza, where the Hamas is, are in the backyard of Israel. They are just next door to Israel. From their airfields, every day they can take out multiple sorties against these targets in Lebanon or in Gaza. But Iran is a bridge too far. It is 2,000 kilometers away from Israel proper, and to that extent, you know, it is a very complex operation, very complicated operations, and technically the Israelis could not execute such an operation without the backing of the Americans. Right? Number one, they needed intelligence support from the American satellites. The American satellites were required for the GPS guidance of these targets, to these targets, you know. Then they required American pressure onto the Arab countries over which the Israeli Air Force would have to overfly. Lastly, they needed the support of, you know, the air-to-air refuelers. If they wanted to carry out massive operations, there was no way they could do that without American KC-135 air-to-air refueler tankers, of which the Americans have about 475. If they wanted meaningful, sustained attacks to destroy the nuclear facilities and infrastructure, destroy the petrol, oil infrastructure, then they needed the support of the Americans. They could not carry it off. Joe Biden was absolutely certain we got a crucial election coming. We can't afford a major flare-up in the Middle East just before the elections. The price of oil will shoot up, will cross the $100 a barrel mark, perhaps go to $150. Oil inflation just before the elections would be a disaster for the Democrats. So they had put pressure on Israel not to attack any nuclear facilities or targets, not to attack the petrochemical facilities, especially the Kharg oil terminal, the Bandar Abbas terminal, the Chabahar terminal. These were declared as strict no-no because that would lead to major escalation. They had only permitted military targets. Now we will firstly analyze this Israeli strike, Operation Day of Repentance, this strike which has come after 25 days of preparation, consultation, planning and rehearsals. Very meticulously planned strikes, and they seem to have gone off flawlessly. Bomb damage assessments have not still been made very clear, though we do have some footage, commercial satellite footage, which shows that the rocket manufacturing plants in Iran have been hit, have been damaged. Iran is trying to deny. Israel claims it has sufficiently degraded the Iranian air defense radars and missile batteries to an extent that Iran is now uncovered. And before it takes any further escalatory steps, it will have to pause and think. So without much ado, let's take a quick look at Operation Day of Repentance. So I shall explain the Israeli Operation Day of Repentance with the help of a few graphic slides, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, what was the air resources that Israel has used? Israel has at the cutting edge approximately 40 F-35 American stealth fighters. They were the spearhead of this particular operation because they are stealth 5th generation fighters. Israel has about 75 various categories of F-15 fighter aircraft, which you can see on the screen. In addition, Israel has about 102 F-16 Israeli fighters of the type that even Pakistan has and has been using against us, right? What were the routing options that the Israeli Air Force had to attack onto Iran? The shortest options are being shown in blue in the northern portion of the slide. One is straight over Syria into Iraq and into Iran. The second is via Jordan, Syria and into Iraq, and then into Iran. The third overland option was over Saudi Arabia, being shown in green. And the last option, if no Arab country was willing to allow its airspace to be used for induction of aircraft, routing of aircraft, and for air-to-air refueling, which was a must, without which the operation could not get through, then Israel would have had no option but to take the red route over the sea as is shown, down the Gulf of Hormuz, down the Red Sea, down over the on the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, and into the Gulf of Hormuz and into Iran. So finally, of course, Israel chose the northern routes, and there is Iran chose the northern route, and there is a speculation that it flew drones over Saudi Arabia as deception routing and as another vector of attack onto especially the drone factories of Iran at Arak. Take a look at this slide in front of you. You know, the following were the air bases that Israel, from which the Israeli Air Force took off. The Nevatim Air Base is the home of the F-35 stealth fighters. The Ramon Air Base is the home of F-16 and F-15 fighters. The Nevatim Air Base is F-35s. The Hatzarim Air Base has got the F-15s, and the Tel Nor has got the F-15 and the F-16s. Now the red arrows show how these aircraft took off. They went over Syria, they went over Jordan and into Iraq. It is noteworthy that before a few days before this, the Israeli Air Force had been bombing the Shiite militia in Iraq and in Syria, which had been stationed there with air defense means by the Iranians to get early warnings of any attack which they expected from the shortest route. The green arrow, from Ramon shows the possible routing of the drones. Israel has some very good drones in the Heron, which we've also purchased from Israel, and the Herop, etc. Suicide drones and other drones, HALE, high altitude long endurance drones, which were used primarily, as per my estimate, for deception routing. And I personally feel that this deception really did work. Now the simple fact is that you had to use air-to-air refuelers. Now Israel has 7 Boeing air-to-air refuelers, Boeing 707s, which have been modified for the refueling role, right? It also has KC-130 refueler aircraft, once again 7 of these. Now initially, in the last war game that we had done, the data from the Americans was that these would be used to refuel from the ground. They would land at a forward refueling point, forward air refueling point, and where the jet fighters would land, these C-130 Hercules transport aircraft would land and refuel the Israeli fighters. Don't forget, this had been done in the Carter era when they had tried to do the hostage rescue in Iran. They had landed in a desert in Iran, the helicopters and these KC-130 refueler aircraft, and there was chaos. They had banged into one another, and there was a lot of damage, blue on blue damage done. So most people had ruled out the use of these, but it is now quite clear, as this picture tells you, that the Israelis have modified these for air to air-to-air refueling. Some calculations done by American officers who have been serving with the refueling tankers, the KC-135s, had shown that Israel with just the Boeings would be able to do about 50 to 60 aircraft, attack aircraft package. They would be able to mount an attack with that. The attack has come with 100 aircraft, right? So quite obviously they seem to have used all these. Though some media reports indicate only 3 air-to-air refuelers were used, Boeings. I don't agree with that, even though the shortest route was used. The simple calculations of air-to-air refueling time and how much gas to be carried, etc., seems to indicate that the full whatever is available of the oil-to-oil, the air-to-air refueling tankers has been employed. Now, what were the weapons that Israel had used? The Israeli defense minister had been saying, we will surprise the world, we will surprise Iran with the kind of weapons that we have, secret weapons that we have. And the simple fact, as I have told you, is that Israel has been planning to attack Iran for almost over a decade. In 2022, as I mentioned to you, they had done exercise Chariots of Fire, in which they had staged an attack, rehearsed an attack on Cyprus, which is almost the same distance, a little bit more than Iran, and they had practiced the air-to-air refueling, delivery of weapons, recovery, etc. All had been practiced. The Israelis are very meticulous and very thorough in their planning. They had developed certain very, very specific weapons to attack Iran staying outside Iranian airspace. They had used a series of air-to-surface, ballistic and cruise missiles. Let me quickly take a look at these. They had used the Rock, or sometimes called Black Arrow missile, which is about 2,800 pounds in weight and has a range of 2 to 400 miles. Next was the Air Laura, 3,500 pounds in weight, range of 300 to 500 miles, not kilometers. Golden Horizon or the Blue Sparrow. This is 4,200 pounds in weight and 500 to 900 miles range, right? The heaviest that Israeli fighters can carry bomb load is about 5,000 pounds. That is the upper limit. That means a large number of the so-called mother of all bombs, MOAB, the GBU-79, which the Americans used for bunker bursting to 100 feet depth and more, that they cannot carry. That only the B-2 stealth bombers of the United States Air Force can carry. But with these, take a look at this. With these, the Israeli aircraft could stay somewhere over eastern Iraq, fire off their weapons and come back, right? Fire off their weapons and come back, so that the Israelis, the Iranians would not even have a chance to take a pot shot at these attacking Israeli aircraft. Now take a look at the next slide. You see, this shows the various attack targets in Iran. The red arrows indicate the route of the Israeli attacking fighters. Like I said, the F-35s would come and fly combat air patrol here to shoot down any Israeli, any Iranian Tomcats or Phantoms or MiG-29s that would try and attack these fighters into Iraq proper. Somewhere over eastern Iraq, these planes fired off their air-to-surface ballistic missiles. The first attack came in 3 waves. The first came at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? And it fired off, the short-range Rock missile, air-to-surface missiles over Kermanshah, the Elam province and Khuzestan. This is where there were the air defense radars of the Iranians. They knocked out these radars. They attacked 4 S-300 surface-to-air missile batteries which the Russians had supplied. These were the most reliable weapons of Iran. It is also believed that they struck some targets which were of the air defense missile targets, which were covering the nuclear facilities also. Wave 2, second wave came at 3 a.m. in the morning, and this attacked the air defense headquarters in Tehran. This attacked the IRGC headquarters and units in Tehran, attacked the surface to air missile facilities defending Tehran. They attacked also the drones. They attacked the Iraq drone manufacturing facility. This was attacked by the drones, by the Israeli drones, and it was primarily designed for deception. I think the deception worked very well, because the B-373, Bavar 373 Iranian surface to air missile batteries, which are their copies, Iranian made copies of the Patriot, they were able to shoot down most of these drones. Only one drone got through. So the Iranians may have been feeling very elated, but the simple fact is, to my mind, this was a deception strike to take away, divert Iranian air resources away from the main attacks and divert them to this. The Iraq factory has not been damaged much. Only one Israeli drone got through. Drones are slow moving, and to that extent they are very much easier to track, detect and shoot down. The third wave came at 3 o'clock in the morning, and once again this one hit the rocket, solid fuel rocket plant for the long range rockets, especially the Fateh 2 hypersonic missiles at Khojar and at Karaj. And they also hit some rocket storage sites in Shiraz. The Israeli aim was very clear. They wanted to degrade the Iranian air defenses. They wanted to degrade the Iranian capability to hit back, especially with a solid fueled Fateh 2 hypersonic missiles, which had done a fair amount of damage on 1st of October. The whole aim was to hit Iran's ability to retaliate, right? And like I said, these attacks were carried out from over eastern Iraq without entering Iranian airspace, and to that extent they came back without a scratch. Not one Israeli fighter was hit by the air defense missiles, air defense artillery, or by the Iranian intercepting fighter aircraft. Not one Israeli aircraft out of the 100 to 140 which had gone was even gained a scratch. So this showed total Israeli dominance over the airspace of Iran by using standoff ballistic and cruise missiles, which have proved very effective. Especially the ballistic missiles, they take a parabolic trajectory, and because of that they hit at a 90-degree angle, and because of that kinetic energy they are able to penetrate underground targets. So Israel had very specifically developed these secret weapons, air to surface ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, especially the Rock, the Air Laura and the Golden Horizon. The Rocks were used to hit the air defense facilities on the coast of Iran, and the Air Laura and the Golden Horizon were used to hit Tehran and the facilities around Tehran, especially the missile manufacturing plants, two of them, the rocket casting motors, as also the solid fuel mixing plant, which was crucial for creating further fuel for the Iranian Fateh 2 hypersonic missiles, which were the most dangerous for Israel. Now comes the question that what has Israel been able to achieve? Like I said, commercial satellite pictures have clearly indicated that the two missile factories have been hit, and possibly the Israeli have been managed to hit the air defense radars and some of the air defense batteries, which may not be available in case Israel attacks again in retaliation to whatever Iran does now in response. So let's quickly now take a look in the wargaming format. What can Iran now do? What are the capabilities? Once again, it has about 3,000 missiles, out of which about, I would say, 180 plus were fired on 1st October, and in April they had fired about another 120 odd of these ballistic missiles. So about, I would say, almost 400 ballistic missiles are gone, not available. Maybe some of these they have been able to replenish. So far, especially in the April strikes, they had not used any of their advanced weapons. They did not want to disclose their advanced capabilities to the Israelis and to the Americans. And but in the second strikes, very definitely these would be used. So the major workhorse would be the Shahab 3 liquid fuel medium range ballistic missile, range 1200 kilometers with about 1200 kg warhead. Most dangerous would be the Fateh 2s, and I think these are the hypersonic long range missiles of 1200 kilometer range, which are solid fueled and which can penetrate all the Israeli layered defenses. They had gotten through on 1st October, they are likely to get through again. Then there is the Sarjil. This is also a medium range missile of 2000 kilometers range, not been used so far by the Iranians, right? And it has it is a solid fueled missile. It doesn't require much preparation time. Then of course there is the Khyber cruise missile and the Pave cruise missile, but they are likely to focus more on the ballistic missile because these have 11 to 15 minutes travel time and they give very little warning of the forthcoming attack. What would the Iranian targets be in Israel? Primarily, I think they would like to go in for the air bases from which the attacks have come to keep the retaliation proportionate and confined to military targets so as to obviate much higher escalation levels. So they would hit the Ramon air base, they would hit the Nevatim air base, which they had tried to hit the last time also, and knock out few of the F-35s. It is being said now that one C-130 aircraft was knocked out at this. There is the Hatzarim air base and there is the Tel Nor air base where F-15 and F-16s are stationed. And in addition, they would hit Tel Aviv, the Mossad headquarters at Tel Aviv. And last time they had managed to, two missiles had hit the near the targets. One was 100 meters short, other was 600 meters short. They hit the urban area around. They will again go in for Mossad. This time they might go in for some Israeli defense industries also. They might go in for some Israeli defense industries. Now, this is what they could do. Comes the crucial question, what will Iran do? Look, Iran has the option of one, retaliating before the American elections. Advantage to them would be that close to the American elections, the Democrats, Joe Biden, would be most unwilling to have a flare-up. And even if there is a retaliation, he might, insist upon Israel to hold back or at least delay its reaction. But the Iranians will have to think 10 times before they retaliate. The obvious Israeli ground plan is to hit. They have done degradation, suppression of enemy air defenses, destruction of enemy air defenses, SIAD and DIAD in the first phase of this operation on 26th October morning. They have severely degraded the S-300 surface to air missile batteries, the radars, etc., To that extent, they have opened windows of attack in case they want to follow up. The Iranian air defense resistance is quite, we don't know exactly what is the level of degradation, but it would be fair to say that it is weaker than what it was prior to the Israeli attack. Next is, what could happen is, in case both sides, and it does seem to me that both sides want to avoid retaliation. Israel gave 2 hours notice to Iran before launching this attack. So which is a clear sign that the Americans are very keen that this should not escalate further, especially not at the time of the elections, right? So one off-ramp that they might give to Iran is, and they had promised this off-ramp to Iran after killing Nasrallah. When Iran was very upset, wanted to retaliate, they said, no, we'll have a ceasefire. So Iran had said, if there is a ceasefire, then we won't retaliate. But they declared no ceasefire. Israel made sure there was no ceasefire. Israel was keen to finish up the job with the Hamas and with the Hezbollah, and also perhaps take a shot at Iran to give it, to restore their deterrence, that you can't get away with attacking Israel twice with about 500 ballistic cruise missiles and drones. That will not pass. Israel will not accept this kind of repeated attacks, and therefore to restore deterrence, it has decided to hit back. Has Israeli deterrence been restored? Well, we will find out. The simple fact is, one off-ramp that could now be given to Iran is that Israel, under American pressure, declares ceasefire in Gaza, declares ceasefire in Lebanon, and the Iranians are then say that we have forced Israel to accept a ceasefire because of our actions, and to that extent we do not have to retaliate. Not much damage has been done anyway. So this is the best possible case scenario, not only for Iran and Israel, but for the world, because otherwise we risk escalatory spiral which could go out of control, which would send the prices of oil skyrocketing, which could torpedo the global economy. What is the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that Iran, does an initial counter-strike because of reasons of saving face, because of reasons of prestige, loss of face, etc. And in retaliation, not only Israel but the American Air Force joins in for a major attack, which this time could include or would include the nuclear facilities and the petrochemical facilities of Iran, to give a body blow to try for a regime change. So if this happened, what would Iran do? Iran could be panicked into going nuclear. And if the panic is extreme, then it could even use that nuclear card, use them or lose them kind of a situation. Don't forget, this is precisely what North Korea had done when it felt that America was flexing muscles to attack it, and before America attacked, they fired off their nuclear weapons to tell them that don't cross the Rubicon. Now we are nuclear armed. So these are the 3 most dangerous scenarios. Iran, what will Iran do? Iran has a moderate president. Iran is aware that a lot of the Iranian population is antagonized by their excesses against the women, against the whales, against the shahabs, etc. But so they want to try and save Iran from total annihilation and destruction. They want to rebuild their economy. They want to have a negotiated settlement. They want to give their people a better lifestyle. So they would very willingly take the off-ramp if offered by Israel in terms of a ceasefire in Lebanon and Gaza. I'm not sure the Israelis would let them off the hook. Israel would be keen to involve the United States and finish this long-standing threat to Israel, this mortal threat to Israel once and for all, right? And in that scenario, if there is no off-ramp provided to Iran, don't forget one thing about the Shias. The Shias historically have been known to be almost suicidal when fighting with an enemy far, far stronger, where the conclusion of the battle is foregone. They have yet fought to the bitter end, starting from the Battle of Karbala downwards. They fought to the bitter end against Iraq and they prevailed. Sheer, what shall I say, superior morale and ability, amazing ability to take punishment and losses. So I won't rule out Iran using its missiles to strike back. And if that happens, the globe, the world is in for a difficult time ahead. Like I said, China is bulk reliant for its petrol and oil onto Iran. What it will do, what Russia will do are huge question marks. Especially what China will do is a question mark. Thank you.